Despite it being one of the most populous countries on Earth, China hasn't made much of an impact on the motorsport scene from a driver perspective. Sure, the country has hosted a vast array of Formula 1, WEC and Formula E races since the turn of the 21st century, but has struggled to have a major presence on the driver front. Of course, in Formula 1 we now have a Chinese driver on the grid in the form of Zhou Guanyu, and has been driving for the Sauber team since 2022. Yet in terms of local prospects beyond him, there aren't any in the immediate future that seem to spring out as though they're destined for Formula 1. There have been some other Chinese drivers in the past in F1, but they've only been given reserve or test driver roles. Those drivers being Ma Xinhua, who drove for HRT and Caterham in 2012 and 2013 respectively, and Tung, who drove for BMW Sauber in 2007 and Renault in 2009 and 10, and is also someone who creates a very neat segue to the main point of this video. You see, whilst in Formula 1 and the European single-seater ladder, Chinese drivers have been rather hard to come by, in the American open wheel scene, they've been rarer than dogs who've flown planes. In fact, in the history of IndyCar, there's only been one Chinese driver to have ever competed in the series. And if you just watch the past 20 seconds of this video, you'll get a fairly good idea about who I'm talking about. Tung was actually born in the Netherlands, but to Chinese parents. After his opportunities in Formula 1 didn't amount to anything from a race seat perspective, and not having the most stellar career in GP2 either, Tung decided to look elsewhere to get his racing kicks. And that's when the IndyCar series came calling. Specifically with the FAST racing team, who were hoping to have a two-car effort in 2011. He tested for them at the not at all daunting Sebring at the end of 2010 in hopes of earning one of those two seats. The thing is though, the FAST outfit were bought by Sam Schmidt at the start of 2011 and effectively meant that the FAST team weren't competing anymore. For Tung meanwhile, he wasn't able to get one of those full-time seats. Yet that doesn't mean though that he'd given up hope of racing in some form in the series. And on the 3rd of May of 2011, it was announced that Pin had gotten a ride for the centenary edition of the Indy 500. He would be driving the number 8 car that was operated by Dragon Racing, but was also run in a collaboration with Sam Schmidt. Of the news, Pin seemed very enthusiastic. The support for me in China has always been tremendous, and it's a great honour to be the first Chinese driver ever to take part in this special race, especially being the 100th edition. Sam Schmidt meanwhile said, "To be the first team involved with a Chinese driver is huge. Our future success lies in our ability to generate commercial interest in our program, and what better way than to have a direct connection to the world's largest population." The thing about the Indianapolis 500 though, is that if there are more than 33 cars entered for the race, any car that qualifies outside of the fastest 33 would be going home early. So despite being very consistent in the practice sessions, Pin would need to be faster than 7 other cars in order to make the race. On his qualifying run, he was looking pretty strong, decent speed and with very little drop off on what was another consistent performance. But that was until turn 1 on the final lap. The car would swap ends on him mid-corner and would fire him violently into the outside wall, with the car still skidding along on its floor up until the entry of turn 2, where it finally came to a stop. Thankfully, Pin got out of the car without any need for assistance, but irrespective of whether the team could get a backup car ready for him to do another attempt later on or not, it wouldn't matter either way. He suffered a concussion in the accident and wasn't medically cleared to take part in the rest of the Indy 500 weekend. Therefore, the first attempt at a Chinese driver taking part in the Indy 500 ended up as a DNQ. Needless to say, this was quite the blow for Pin, but as it would later turn out to be, he would become the first Chinese IndyCar driver after all. After testing for the same Schmidt Dragon Racing team at Sonoma a week prior to the race at the same track, Pin would get to start to the Indy Grand Prix of Sonoma, and officially became the first IndyCar driver from China. He said, "The track is very technical, with many differences in height. Really challenging. This circuit requires an intelligent approach." Qualifying wasn't too bad to be fair to him. Whilst he was starting in a fairly lowly 24th position, his actual time was really close to a lot of the drivers in the top 10, in what was an extremely competitive qualifying. During the race, he gained a few positions, but was having a rather uneventful race, which to be honest is exactly what he needed to have. He kept pace with a number of cars, but would go a lap down just after the halfway point of the race. Unfortunately, as the race was entering the last stages, it wouldn't be quite so uneventful for him. Behind Alex Tagliani, Pin got caught out by the Canadian's braking point, and in trying to avoid him, went on the dirt and hit the wall, getting stuck behind some tyres. The crash would put him out of the race. Once again, a solid showing that was brought to an early conclusion. Tung wasn't able to compete in the other races for 2011, and afterwards he technically became a free agent. And as for the prospects of getting a spot on the IndyCar grid in the future, the Chinese driver was seeing if a full season ride could materialise. It would be great if I could have a full-time seat here. This was maybe not out of the question on the basis that IndyCar were hoping to race on a street circuit in China the following year. Obviously it was a market that IndyCar wanted to get some traction in, and with a Chinese driver potentially on hand as well, it was a driver that the locals could get behind. But unfortunately, Tung wouldn't get a full season IndyCar drive. In fact, he would get no drive of any kind in the series at all. Whether this is one of the reasons that ended up leading to the cancellation of the race in China remains to be seen. Yet with no seat coming in 2012, the race at Sonoma would turn out to be the last and technically only IndyCar race that Tung competed in, as well as being the only IndyCar race where a Chinese driver has participated in so far. Afterwards, Tung drove in Formula E's first ever season, but mostly carved out a career in sports cars, particularly in the LMP2 class. Nowadays, he's a property consultant. Honestly, I feel that Tung's crash during the qualifying run at the Indy 500 really cost him a chance in IndyCar, and also cost the series a big chance at exploring the Chinese market. Had he finished his run, he'd have comfortably made the field, and maybe, had he gotten into the race, it would have brought more attention to him and the series back in China, creating more sponsorship opportunities and a chance of getting more rides in the future. The wind had started to pick up at an inopportune time for Hopin, and it could have befallen anyone else who was going to make a run. Alas, we'll never know whether he could have had a much longer IndyCar career than he ended up having. But what do you think of IndyCar's only Chinese driver? Say down in the comment section below. Plus, if you did enjoy this video, then I would be enormously appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons. Yet, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.